So in this video we're going to introduce fractions on the Roman abacus and counting board, and we're going to do some adding and subtraction using fractions, and we're going to experiment with some techniques we've been using in the Reading Ancient Schoolroom. This video presupposes the information in our video called Introduction to the Roman Abacus and Counting Board, so you might like to watch that video first. So here we have a reproduction Roman abacus. So far we've just been using these grooves for whole numbers, but we've also got these two sets of grooves on the right hand side, and those are for fractions. Here we've got a groove with 5 beads in it. Each of those beads stands for a 12th. Here we've got the Roman symbol for a 12th or an uncia. Up here we've got a shorter groove with a bead which stands for 6/12ths, or 6/12ths is a half. So if I want to count 12ths on the abacus, I can go 1/12th, 2/12ths, 3/12ths, 4/12ths, 5/12ths, and then 6/12ths is up here, so that's 6/12ths, and then 7/12ths, 8/12ths, 9/12ths, 10/12ths, 11/12ths, and then 12/12ths is the same as 1, and that's a 1 over there, and now that's a whole number, of course. Here we've got 3 symbols for smaller fractions that Romans like to use. This is the symbol for a 24th, or half a 12th. This is the symbol for a 48th, or a quarter of a 12th, and this is the symbol for a 72nd, or a 1/6 of a 12th. There's a question about where these beads are supposed to rest when they're not in use. I'm going to put them here and here in these spaces between those symbols. If we want a 24th, we can move this one up here. If we want a 48th, we can move this one down here. If we want a 72nd, we can move this one down here. And just for this fraction, if we want, we can have 2 of them on the abacus, and now we've got 2 72nds. As regards using a counting board, so far we've been using a counting board with whole numbers only, like this, but we can easily extend our counting board to the right so that we've got the same fractions as we've just seen on the abacus. Here we've separated those 3 fractions on the right more neatly into separate boxes. We haven't actually got any counting boards surviving from the Roman world, so that's a bit made up. It makes it slightly easier. Now, Romans have some names and symbols for fractions, and here are some names and symbols for the fractions we've just seen, fractions that they like to use. Here we have an uncia, a 12th. That's the symbol we've seen on the abacus and the counting board for a 12th, and then going up from the 12th we have the symbols and names for 2/12ths, 3/12ths, 4/12ths, 5/12ths, 6/12ths. That's the same as a half. Its symbol looks like an S. Its name is semis, and that's related to English semi. And then 7/12ths, 8/12ths, 9/12ths, 10/12ths, 11/12ths. And then down here we've got the 3 symbols for smaller fractions that we've seen at the very right hand side of the abacus. That's the symbol for a 24th, or half a 12th, the symbol for a 48th, or a quarter of a 12th, and the symbol for a 72nd, or a 1/6 of a 12th. And as I said, you can have 2 of those, that smallest fraction on the abacus or on the counting board. Romans have a couple of names for that fraction consisting of 2 of those. Sometimes they call it bini sextuli, or 2 sextulas, 2 of those. Good. Now, Eleanor, would you like to write 5/12ths? Would you like to write 5 and 5/12ths and a 24th on your wax tablet in Roman numerals and symbols?
That's the 5.
Great.
That's the 5/12ths. And that's the 24th.
Great. And in our world we might worry about what 5/12ths and a 24th is as a single fraction, but Romans, if they can possibly express something as so many 12ths and so many 24ths, then they will. So that's great. Below that on the wax tablet, would you like to write 4 and a 12th and a 24th?
So that's the 4.
Great.
That's the 12th.
Great.
And that's the 24th.
Great, and you've written the 4 the way we like to write it when we're doing arithmetic, so that's great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add this number and this number, and adding will work the way adding always does work, but there will just be some fractions involved. And what we've been doing is we've been first entering one of the numbers we want to add together onto the abacus or the counting board. Would you like to enter that first number, the 5 and 5/12 and a 24th, onto the abacus?
So here's the 5.
Great.
And there's the 5/12, and there's the 24th.
Great. And would you like to now add that second number, that's the 4 and a 12 and a 24th?
So there's the 4.
Great.
Now, when we add another 12th here, that actually does that. And when we add another 24th, that actually does that.
Excellent. And that's your answer. And what's that number?
That is 9 and 7/12.
Excellent. And would you like to come up with 2 numbers you'd like to add one to the other?
How about if we had a fraction which consisted of one of each of these things? So 1 semis, 1 uncia, 1 semuncia, 1 seculus, and 1 sextula.
Nice idea. Now, first of all, I'm going to ask you to write that number on your wax tablet. Just a tip about writing the semis plus the uncia. A semis plus an uncia, 6/12 plus 1/12, is the same as 7/12. That's the fraction we've got up here, and I suggest writing it like that. That dot that we see in a lot of fraction symbols really stands for a 12, so that's a half plus a 12, as it were.
So that's the septuncs.
Right.
And then that's the semuncia, that's the seculus, and that's the sextula.
Excellent. And would you like to come up with another number you'd like to add to that one?
How about if we add another one of those to it?
Great. So we're going to add this number to itself. Would you like to first enter that number onto a counting board?
So that is the septuncs, the semuncia, the seculus, and the sextula.
Excellent. And would you like to add a second instance of that number?
So when we add a second semis, that of course makes 1.
Great.
And then when we add a second uncia, that makes 2 uncii. When we add a second semuncia, that's going to make 1 more uncia. When we add a second seculus, that's going to make another semuncia. But down here, we can just add another bean.
Excellent. And that's your answer. And what's that number?
So that is 1 3/12, 1 24th, and 1 36th.
Excellent. And you're making use there of a principle that 2/12 equals, 1/12 equals 2 24ths. There are 2 24ths in a 12th. There are 2 48ths in a 24th. There are also 3 72nds in a 24th. Excellent. Now, shall we do subtracting? Should we go back to these 2 numbers, and shall we subtract this number from that number? So we're going to subtract 4 and a 12th and a 24th from 5 and 5/12 and a 24th. And let's do this one on the counting board again.
So that's 5.
Right.
And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/12, and that's the 24th.
Great. And what happens if you subtract 4 and a 12th and a 24th?
So to subtract 4, I'm going to have to break this down into 5 of those and take 4 of them away. So now I'm left with 1.
Great.
Subtracting 1/12 goes like this, and subtracting the 24th goes like that.
Great, and shall we take that number and subtract this number that you came up with here, the number that consists of 7/12 plus a 24th plus a 48th plus a 72nd?
We can try. So to subtract the half from the 1, we end up doing that. That gives us the other half.
Great.
And then to subtract the unkia, we do that. Subtracting the semunkia, we effectively do that.
Great.
And then subtracting the siculus, we do that. Here we have a problem because we can't simply take half of that because the ratio is different. However, if we had something here, then that would be equivalent to 3 of those, and then we could take 1 away. We don't have anything there, but of course we can, as it were, create something there by moving a bean. So in theory, 1 unkia is 2 semunkia.
Great.
So if we leave 1 there and then turn the other 1 into 3 beans down here and then take 1 of them away, that would be the answer.
Excellent, and what is your answer?
7/12, 1/24, 1/48, and 1/36.
Excellent, and do you have one more subtraction sum you'd like to do?
Could I subtract maybe a quarter from a third?
Great, would you like to write a third and then a quarter on your wax tablet?
So the third is a triens, and it looks like this. And the quarter is a quadrans, and it looks like that.
Excellent. So the third, it's called a triens, but it consists of 4/12ths. We like to think about how many 12th things consist of on the abacus and the counting board. It's 4/12ths, and it's written as 4 dots. The quarter is called a quadrans. It consists of 3/12ths, and it's written as 3 dots, like that. Would you like to enter the third, that's the 4/12ths, on your abacus?
So that's the 4/12ths.
And would you like to subtract the quarter?
Like that.
Great, and what's your answer?
1/12.
Great, so a third minus a quarter is a 12. Excellent, and that takes us to the end of this video. This is who we are. Thank you for watching.